Hey, and welcome to Croc Chat. Today we are going to be chatting with Shawn Heflick in another interview video. And Shawn has an extensive background in herpetology. We'll discuss what he's got going on at Crocodile Manor at his location in Florida, as well as his role with python hunters from National Geographic a few years ago, and his love for world travel. But first, I also want to remind you that your support for this channel is also support for endangered crocodilians. That's why I started Gator Gear. Yeah, please go check out Gator Gear. We have original t-shirts, mugs, artwork, all done with my very own artworks. You can find the link below this video in the description or go to my website, reptileprograms.com. Croc Chat is sponsored by rodentpro.com. Not only do they supply me with the quality feeders for all my reptiles, they are offering you a 10% discount for being a supporter of Croc Chat. Use the code CrocChat10 with your next Rodent Pro order. All right, well, tonight we are talking with Shawn Heflick. Shawn, thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Now, you've got a pretty extensive background in herpetology. How long or when did you really realize that herpetology would be a career for you? How young were you?
Well, I grew up on a farm most of my childhood, on a farm in central Ohio. And I think there's like one defining moment was in the spring where I came across just a ton of garter snakes, right? And just a nice ball of garter snakes. And, I think that's sort of an experience where it's a defining moment for some people. Either they're like, hell no, or they're like, what is this? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And for me, it was the latter, and I've always been into animals, and, it was a pretty remote farm. We didn't really have neighbors, so to speak. And so running the fields and that were, in the woods, something I did. But that was just, I don't know, it just struck me and stuck with me. And then, at that point I knew it was like, man, I want to study stuff like this. I want to be a biologist or whatever, and I was pretty young. I was around 6 or 7 years old, and so at that age, you don't really have a clear concept of what that means. And then it just grew from there.
Yeah, so it sounds like a pretty familiar story with most of the people who end up in this field, and it sounds a lot like my background as well. Of course, this is called Croc Chat, so we're going to talk about Crocodile Manor and what you do there, but you've also done a lot with snakes, venomous snakes, and you also were part of python hunters on National Geographic, weren't you?
True.
How did that get started?
Oh man, so let me go back. That's going back quite a bit, right? So
It's gonna be what, 10, 12 years?
More actually.
More?
So probably 15 from the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had worked, I've had insane amount of permits, right? I hold, as far as Florida goes, pretty much every single permit. I think the only two permits I don't hold are for rhinos and elephants. And so I've worked with them a lot on different committees and stuff like that. And I, was talking to and working with them on a lot of the reptile issues and stuff that we had going on. And, the python thing came up. And so I worked closely with the head of that department back then, and in trying to put together this permitting system, right? Try to do something about it. And so they were opening up this permit system, and I happened to get permit number one because working closely with them. And we went out and they were doing a big media event, just to basically, show it off to the world and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And we went out and we kind of split up onto different airboats, and we convened with the media from all over the place, some from all over the world. It was kind of a lot
Hmm.
of international media there. And it just so happened that we caught a python. Now, this wasn't even in an area really that was known for these pythons in the Everglades. Um, and we, with cameras rolling, we're like, what? And man, it was the shot that was heard around the world, so to speak, as far as the python thing went. And then I had dozens of agencies, coming to me in that, and decided on Nat Geo for obvious reasons. And then I guess the rest is history.
So you pretty much got it all started.
It was fun.
Uh, Now, in your perspective, how bad is that Python problem? I've heard so much from other people on whether it's overdone by the media, if it's isolated areas.
They're there in large numbers. Um, but the media and politicians love clickbait. They love grandstanding. They love the drama and the dramatic, and and so I mean they're obviously a problem. They're eating native stuff. They're also eating a lot of non-native stuff. But the reality of it is, catching pythons down there on these pythons hunts and that isn't even putting a dent in these numbers. And they know that. They know that. But there's big funding in it. There's money in it. Every politician around the election year loves to be the hero of the Everglades, because that's a huge topic in Florida. That's a huge concern for constituents. And so they use it. They use it as a tool. They use it, to manipulate people. And every last one's going to be the hero of the Everglades, and they're going to save it. And I'm here to tell you, the only thing that's going to potentially wipe those pythons out, if ever, and I don't believe if ever is going to happen, is cold snaps like we just recently had. They can't take that kind of cold. Um, this last one was a little better than the one in 2010, 2011 that wiped out a lot of those pythons down there, because we had consecutive nights of really blistering cold, but the days were sunny. And so those animals had the ability, to at least recharge a little bit. And that's the key. What we saw in 2010 through 2011 was a week long of terrible cold and overcast, no sun whatsoever. So they couldn't crawl out and recharge. They couldn't get their batteries back up, so to speak.
That's amazing. Do you think they're adapting at all to the cold weather? Do you think that there's any type of
Well, that's
evolution going on?
a relatively slow process. That's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen over a handful of years. Obviously, the ones that are a little bit hardier for whatever reason, or more importantly, the ones maybe that are a little more savvy, and they can get into large piles of debris and that are rotting and putting off that heat, and those are the ones that are going to make it. Those are the ones that are going to pass on their genes.
Mhm. And that makes sense. Obviously, evolution is too slow of a process to happen in how many years has it been? About 20 that
Yeah.
they're assuming they've been there. And but when it first all started making the news media, Noah had them all the way up to Maryland and all the way out to Southern California. I'm like, I can't take mine to a show in the wintertime without worrying about a respiratory infection. And then people think they're going to live in Maryland. It's crazy, but
But they love the drama. And look,
well,
there's a lot of grant money. There's a lot of money being thrown at that kind of thing, and they know it. If you have
mhm.
conversations with them privately, they're well aware of it, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna get it. We're gonna get the money when it's there,"
Mhm.
and so they strum that fiddle, so to speak.
Yeah, I bet they do. But of course, this is Croc Chat. I love to talk about crocodiles, alligators, anything crocodilian. Although I do love all reptiles as well. So you own and operate Crocodile Manor in Florida.
I do.
And you want to tell us a little bit about Crocodile Manor?
Yeah, we're a nonprofit. Crocodile Manor, as it exists right now in this location, is about 16 years old. Um, it, yeah, that's about right. I lose track of time; like it all blends together.
Mhm.
But yeah, so we get animals that are confiscated from FWC. We've gotten animals from AZA zoos that I look. This animal is not in the best of conditions. We don't really have the holding for it. It's not really on our list to exhibit or whatever. Obviously, we get animals that are rescued, injured, whatever happens to be.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so we've got Philippine crocs, we've got Orinoco crocs, and African slender snouts, and broad snouted caiman, and morlets. So it's pretty broad range. Um, but yeah, we give them the best life that we can. They live in natural enclosures with natural ponds, which I love. Uh,
Mhm.
and they do fairly well.
So that's a pretty long list that you started naming different species. Do you know how many species in total you have right now?
Oh, I never keep count of that. It's a lot less than it used to be. I used to have 17 species.
Mm.
Now I think I have, but let's run through it. Let's see. I think right now I only have 11 species, so we're down.
Still
I,
a good number.
yeah, still a good number. But I don't like. I think my mindset's changed a little bit. I think at one point in time, I think most crocodilian people go through that at a facility. We're like, oh, I got to catch them all. I got to get all the
Mhm.
species. And there really is like that would be awesome if it was possible. But they're expensive to keep. They're expensive to maintain. They take a lot of room. It is hard to run a facility and have the passion for exotic travel like I do. It's hard to have somebody to be like, hey, could it's one thing to feed them, right, and
Mhm.
keep an eye out on them, but if something goes wrong and they've got to go into that enclosure, that's a lot of trust. That's it takes a lot of trust on a facility owner's part, and it takes the right people, and I'm not sure I'm ever really relaxed when I leave the country, because I know, with animals in general, anything can go wrong, and so yeah, so I'm enjoying it. I now and then I might put into the collection something that I want to. I've been recently thinking about here lately. It's like, what, I wouldn't mind getting some of the smaller stuff again. The dwarf game and that I like them. I like working with them. And So I might do that. I might get some dwarf caiman, maybe some osteolamus
Mhm.
again, and deal with those. Because I've got some big boys now, and that makes it even harder to leave the country when you're like, man, in the back of your mind, there's always that what if something goes sideways, and
Yeah, you can't help but think that. I used to have a lot of people, living in New York where there's not a lot of access to animals. People always want to offer to volunteer. And between crocodilians, venomous snakes, even the bigger constrictors, I'm like, I can't trust it to anybody up here, especially the way our permits are listed. I don't have any employees, not that kind of insurance. So
yep,
I totally get it. I totally get that trust that you have to have in somebody that you're going to come home and not only is the croc going to be okay, but the keeper's still going to be there.
absolutely.
What is your biggest?
Probably my female Orinoco. Is she's big. I haven't laid a tape on her in a long time, but she is probably easily 12 feet.
Oh wow.
And she's just big and beautiful, and I recently acquired a male, which is like hen's teeth. and it's part of the project. So I've got to grow him up though. He's way behind in size, so that'll be a long haul project. But it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it.
Nice. So do you do a lot of breeding?
I don't do a lot. I'm very selective. I'm not out there breeding for no apparent reason.
Mhm.
I'm not really out there wanting to breed and flood Florida with with crocodilians. Um, it's a mixed bag. Uh, I don't know when it started, but the reality is that in the last 10 years, been a lot of new permittees, and I don't know where they're getting their hours, but it's just like they pop up out of nowhere, and it's concerning. It's
Mhm.
um, part of the concern is the health and welfare of the animal. For me, I think that's one of the most important things. Like these people, do they know what they're doing? Do they know what they're talking about? Do they, And I watch some social media stuff, not that much. I ignore most of it. With a lot of people like that, but it's concerning. It's concerning to see the number of bites that occur. And those are the ones that you see. There are a lot of out there that I hear about that never make it to onto social media, the light of day, and so it is concerning. It's concerning from a public safety standpoint, a private individual standpoint, the health and well-being of the animals, and just the overall perception. I think, it's. I think we all want what we do to be represented in the best light.
Mhm.
And I think just the nature of the beast for some social media now is the opposite of that. The clicks and the likes and and all that stuff, just for the sake of that stuff. People have been telling me forever, you need to do a YouTube channel with crocodilians and stuff like that, and I'm just like, I could, but it's not really. I think to be, and I use this term like successful at that stuff, in huge numbers, I think I would have to go against my better judgment and kind of my ethics on it, and it's just not going to happen. You know,
Yeah.
so so that's where I.
Yeah, there's that fine line of getting the interest of the general public who are not there just because of their love for the animal, but then also getting the correct information, the education. So, Steve Irwin kinda he rode that line very finely. I know a lot of old zoo keepers, curators, they weren't very fond when he first started, knowing that people were gonna emulate him, and now I look back at 35 years of doing programs with crocodilians in my shows and just the younger crowd, like you said, what's online, people getting permits, even with certain species of pythons, anacondas that have become available. People want to put bunny ears on them and boop them on the nose. And I'm like, that's still a predator. And what I appreciated about them is their wild nature. And if you smell like a prey item while you're booping them on the nose, they're going to boop you right back. So I think there's too much complacency.
There's a lot of complacency, and I get asked all the times, like, "What do you think of so and so?" And I'm like, I don't. Like, I just don't. I don't watch them. I don't. People send me stuff all the time from different people. And in the one clip, the clips that I do see that people send me, I, it is a fine line. It's a fine line between educating, disseminating the right information,
Mhm.
and doing it in an entertaining fashion, which that's the name of the game these days. But so many people are out there just doing nonsense for the sake of nonsense, you know, and it's a lot of it's disrespectful to the species, disrespectful to the animal. And I think that's a biggie for me. A lot of these people, you can tell, don't truly enjoy that animal for the sake of what it is. They enjoy it for what that animal can do for them.
Exactly.
It's utilitarian in that regard. And maybe I'm just getting older. Maybe that's the new thing, and that's how it's going to be. And if that's the case, it's sad. In
Yeah.
my because I think you can do it. You can entertain people, be educational, right, and still respect those animals. And I think if you truly, I don't think it's fake, because there's a lot of, they're just fake, you know. And I think if you're truly passionate and you truly love those animals for the sake of those animals, it comes out, you know. And I think that's the problem. I think a lot of that's being lost, and it's just sort of a cookie cutter, type of thing that's churning out a lot of people. And you can tell, you can see it, that it's not so much about the animal, it's all about them, and their
Exactly.
personalities. And
Yeah. There's a few that I run across, and I'm not going to say any names and start bashing, but it's like they'll get themselves in the weirdest positions and get their face in a shot when there's no need to.
yeah,
And before I started doing my own YouTube channel, I was working with a friend. He was the cameraman, and I'm like, get some close-ups, get the animal. It doesn't have to be me in every shot. We want to see the animals.
yeah,
So, but I go back to Wild Kingdom. So, like you said, it's probably the age.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I love those programs where it might open up with the person, but then it immediately goes to the animal. And
Hmm.
you can still hear, the audio. You can still hear the educational slant coming. You can still hear the important stuff, and you can hear that passion and energy in that person. But it's filming the animal. Those are the ones
Hmm.
I gravitate to, because I'm like, okay, this person gets it. This person gets it, and they may pop in and out of it, but the vast majority of it's like up close. Like, look at the eyes on this thing. Look at the teeth on this thing. Look at and so really it highlights the animal itself. And that's my thing. That's what I like.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I watch the animal world to see the animal, not the human being.
Yep.
But so, do you guys? Are you open to the public? Is Crocodile Manor open? Do you do a lot of educational outreach there?
Typically, I do. If I'm going to do tours, it's specialty tours, and that I'm not open to the public 24/7. And I used to do a lot more educational stuff. I'm way more busy now than I think I've ever been. So it becomes harder to do.
Mm,
I'll still do some stuff at schools. I'll still, especially stuff that people request or something like that. But not as much as I used to do. And I'm not against it. I have thought about really kind of reconfiguring um, the facility here and making it a little more heavy by appointment on the weekends or whatever.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so we'll see. That is that's still up for debate in my head. So I have
Yeah.
really pulled away from commenting on stuff. I've had people literally say the same thing. Oh, you
Mhm.
don't know shit about crocodilians. Who are you? You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm just like, all right,
Yeah.
And then sometimes, maybe my ego gets the best of me, and I'm just tired of it. And I'm like, just drop my name into Google, because I'm not gonna do this.
I,
I'm
I,
like, I'm not gonna do. I'm not.
I've said that. I've said that before. I don't have the as much of the history, but I am findable, especially on social media and through my own webpage and stuff. And it's like, just look up my background, please, before you start. And I actually had one guy who said that he appreciated me handling it respectfully, and he was going to watch Croc Chat to see the interview I was talking about. It was with Dr. Mazzotti, Dr. Frank
Oh,
Mazzotti. The whole thing that keeps coming up there was the Nile crocodiles are taking over the Everglades.
oh, in the Everglades, yeah.
So I know I chirp in and they start sending me the AI answer from Google. I'm like, well, anybody, it's AI. Google didn't even do the research. It's a computer. So they don't verify their sources. They just put out whatever pops up often. And that's not called research because you typed in, are there Nile crocodiles in the Everglades? And Google gave you a 3-sentence answer.
Yeah. I just
So I told him, and he actually subscribed. I saw the guy subscribe right away.
nice. I think that's
So that one was a win. That one was a win for education.
Yeah, more power to him. I think it was just a couple weeks ago. I popped on. I didn't even remember. It was about venomous stuff, and I went on it and I said something really tame. It wasn't even that big a deal. I just made a correction. Said, "Hey, this is, this is actually the case." And these people jumped on there and were like, "I've been working with venomous snakes, for years. Like you don't know shit, like And somebody else actually got on there and went, dude, you need you need to like maybe back up a little bit. And like Shawn's been doing this a long time, but I just whatever. I don't even care anymore. So I'm
That
just
was
like,
very recent, wasn't it?
it was, yeah,
I saw that.
yeah,
I saw that. I don't think it was even on one of your posts, but the comment came up on one of the groups or something,
yeah,
and it was about venom gland removal and the possibility of regeneration.
exactly. And all I did was tell a story, and said, "Oh man, I could tell you a story about, an individual had a Chaothia, an albino Chaothia, and they had a full tubal ligation and gland removal, and and the those glands and that grew back. This guy was letting people hold it and play with it, and he sent me a picture, and he goes, 'What is this on the glass?' And I looked at it, and I was like, 'Man, it looks like venom.' And I went over to his place, and this was years and years ago. And sure enough, that thing was intact. And this was done by a professional. And back in the day, it used to happen a lot. That tissue is so regenerative that if you don't get it all, it's coming back. And 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 people don't realize that. People do not realize that. And it's problematic, clearly, or can be.
We actually had a guy. He was from the Middle East, moved to my area of New York. He wasn't a vet. Don't ask me if he even had any anesthesia, but he would devenomize cobras, rattlesnakes, gaboon vipers. And I remember when I was real young, like as a teenager, one of our local pet shops was selling them, or at least displaying them.
Mm.
So this guy was doing it for quite a while. Yeah. And or venomoid, I probably didn't use the term venomoid, but devenomized.
Yeah.
And yeah, nobody ever considered regeneration then.
Yeah.
And I was guilty of handling a few of those individuals.
Yeah.
And luckily people don't realize the venomous snakes do calm down, which is why I always like them in my shows. When I can handle a timber rattler or a diamondback, and I can say it's just the nature of the animal isn't nasty, but I'm always going to use a hook because everything can have a bad day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You sneeze wrong, somebody takes a picture and a flash goes off. I'm never going to take that chance.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it's the same thing with crocodilians, and I see, the new craze is to be in those crocodilians' face, and training, and training is great. I train mine, and but people get complacent, and they mistake that training for compassion on that animal's part, or we're besties, we're friends, we understand one another. When they say that, the first thing that pops in my head is, just by that comment alone, I can tell you don't understand that animal. And I'm not saying that crocodilians are all vicious or anything else. What I'm saying is, even the tamest dog on this planet can have one bad second. And with a dog, it could be painful, and you might go to the hospital. But with a crocodilian, it could be the end. You could get your arm tore off. You could, you know what I mean? It's not worth it. And I think that's what people forget, you know, that, you know, it seems like it's all fun and games. And, oh, man, look, I've done this 300 times with this animal. And this animal has never done anything. Okay. And then that one time, and who knows what the variable is? Who knows what the trigger is?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And the next thing you go, you're dead or maimed, or, and it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. You know?
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, you mentioned the cold snap earlier. How did that, how cold did it get?
Man, it hit us pretty hard. It came in on a Saturday night, and the actual temperatures itself got down to 24 degrees, which is, I live in central East Coast Florida. That's bitter cold. We had ice. Ice, not frost, ice.
Mm-hmm.
And my animals have ponds, and I let my pumps run all night long, so there's water flowing. But the real concern, besides that crazy low temp below freezing, the wind was howling like 30 mile an hour, 35 mile an hour gusts, and it was stripping the heat off everything. And so Sunday comes around, I think the highs got to be maybe 50 degrees. And then bam, we hit it again. And, with the wind chill, we're talking about getting down to 12, 13 degrees is what it got. That's unheard of here. Unheard of here.
Yeah.
And like I went in, it was so bad Saturday, I thought I lost that big female Orinoco. I thought my male cataphractus, he wasn't coming up. I thought, oh shit, And so I actually Sunday evening, I stood in that Orinoco pond and configured this weird, like, makeshift 250 watt heat lamp array, for her. And she's been here forever, since she was little, and she's never had a problem with the cold. But I thought she was dead on Sunday morning. And she got under that heat array, and I went out there in the middle of the night, and steam's coming up off of her, and she knew what she needed to do. I put heat lamps on that male slender snouts pond. I hadn't seen him, and so it was nerve wracking. These aren't I wouldn't say they're pets, but they are. They are, when it comes to the fact that I love these animals. I'm with them every single day. Day in and day out. It's me doing it. It's me feeding them. It's me taking care of them. It's me redoing their enclosures. It's me talking to them as I walk through and check on them, and and watching their quirky behaviors, and it's me raising them, watching them go from a baby to a 12-foot crocodile. It's you've got to be a monster to not form a bond with an animal after going through all of that, and so they're not a pet in the terms that other people would talk about a pet, a cat that curls up on your lap or something while you're watching TV, but they mean a lot to me. They mean the world to me. They're my animals. They're my charges. It's
Right.
my responsibility to take care of them the best I can. And so it's nerve wracking. It is nerve wracking.
Well, like you said, that last part, your responsibility, regardless of the bond they're going to get with you.
Yep.
You love the animal for what they are, and they rely on you in captivity, not only for food, but in this particular case, safety from the weather. So yeah, that had to be brutal. So you're south, or you said East Coast Central, so you're north of Fort Lauderdale, but south of Cape Canaveral.
So Cape Canaveral is in the north of this county, Brevard County. I'm in the very south of this county.
Mm-hmm.
Brevard's a big county. It's the longest county in Florida. Yeah, and it was man, we had solid ice on some things. The so my I also love tropical plants, and I've spent an insane amount of money on tropical plants over the years and getting this place to look like a jungle and that. And I could show you a picture that it looks like a bomb went off. Everything's dead and brown and brittle, and it's heartbreaking. Um, but fingers crossed, all the animals came through it. It was touch and go for a couple of them, and but they did. They came through it and did well. It's always surprising. Some of the animals that you think, like alligators, alligators can take an insane cold. But you know who I never see come up in the cold weather? Alligators. They are the first to stay on the bottom of their ponds and don't come out, and they're just babies. They're just absolute babies. And some of the crocodiles that are fully tropical. One of my Cuban females, she's no longer with us. She was crazy old, been around here. Best anybody could tell is she came in as an adult on a shipment in the early 1950s,
Wow.
Cuba. And I remember in that 2010, 2011 freeze that we had, it was 27 degrees outside, not wind chill, just straight up 27 degrees. And I walked out at sunrise, where it's just, dawn, just starting to break, enough light where you can see. And she had come out of her pond and was sitting on the sandbar where the first place the sun hits, waiting for that sun. And I had an IR temp gun with me, and I temped her right between her eyes, 27 degrees. And she's out there, and this is a Cuban crocodile, and I'm like, I never would have guessed it. Never would have. But they're tough. Some of them are crazy tough,
That is. Yeah, we had friends down in Miami, and they were telling us they were getting frost down there. So for that cold snap to be that bad, that far south, it was crazy. And we thought we were cold up here. It was bitter cold in New York, but
yeah. And I'll tell
we're
you
used to it occasionally.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else. We're not used to it. We're not prepared for it. We're not, and it's a it's a moist cold down here. And that wet cold, and it doesn't even have to be raining. It's just, we have high humidity compared to you guys, and it gets in your bones. It's a different kind of cold. And then when you got 35-mile-an-hour winds, that's just stripping everything off, all the heat off, brutal. It is brutal. And I know people up north were laughing. I'm like, ain't nothing funny about this. Like, if you came down here, you'd be like, it's a different kind of cold. And I've had northerners come down, and go, oh, yeah, this, man, like, 40 degrees, up there is like, I'll walk around in my shorts and, go down to the mailbox.
I was outside without a jacket on working the other day. In fact, it was so nice, 40 degrees. Yeah. I was able to open the reptile shed and do a clean out of my water tubs for my crocs and turtles.
Yeah. But 40 degrees down here with the wind going and the humidity, it just gets in your bones. It's different. It's different.
Yeah, but I'd still rather do it for a week than 2.5 months.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, well, I'm glad you got through that cold snap, especially with tropical animals. It's nothing but stress. You also mentioned you like to do a lot of world travel. Where do you like to go?
Man, everywhere. I lost count of how many countries I've been to, but it's over 3 dozen. It's well over 3 dozen. The more wild the place, the better for me. I don't like tourist places. I usually, obviously in some places you gotta get there through a tourist portal. And then I like to get out and get wild. And a lot of research is done, in a hammock along a riverbank. We go into a remote, Chickasaw forest, and we'd literally sleep in hammocks, just inside the forest on a riverbank, and put a tarp over us in case it rains. And we got a little campfire you cook on, and that's what I like. That's what I love. But I like travel in general though. My bucket list. I've been to all those places, but my bucket list is still so long. I'd have to win $1 billion to be able to fulfill it
Wow.
before I died. But no, I do. I love different peoples and cultures and foods, and in besides the wildlife and the wild places. I think it. I'm always curious how people that don't travel, how can they not? Yeah, you know what I mean? And I think for some people, they've never experienced it. They've never had a taste of it. So they don't know. They don't know what kind of an amazing, exciting, educational, experience it is. I think it's humbling. I
No,
think
no doubt.
what's that?
I said no doubt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's truly humbling. You go in with all my experience with animals and that, and you go in with a 13-year-old kid as a guide into some jungle, and that kid's got more information because he grew up there.
Mm-hmm.
He knows plants that his mother and grandma use for medicinal stuff. He knows what you can eat. He knows what you stay away from. And he knows about the animals and where to find them and what they eat, and it's just it's amazing. It's amazing the knowledge that's out there, and it's still untapped. It's still really untapped for the most part, and it's being lost, and that's sad. But I think part of me would have loved to become an anthropologist, an ethnobotanist or ethnozoologist, or and mix those things with the research and that, because I love different cultures, and the more wild they are, the better, for me.
Especially when you are experiencing them firsthand, when you're down with them, and you become part of that. You immerse yourself right in it, because you're not in the tourism area, and you're probably the only guy from the U.S. hanging out with a bunch of natives to whatever region of the world you're in.
I love different cultures. When it comes to ethnic foods and exotic foods, I'm a foodie. I love trying new foods. I've eaten some of the craziest stuff. Just staying with a family in the jungle, in the Amazon basin or wherever, and you're eating whatever they're eating. Sometimes you don't know what you're eating until after you've eaten it, and then you're like, oh, that was a jungle rat. Okay, it was delicious. Whatever. It is what it is. And no, I'm all about that. I'm suspicious of people who aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Who people are like, no, I don't want to try new foods. No, I'm not interested in learning about different cultures. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't understand. How is that even possible? Where's your sense of like that thirst for knowledge and just that, like, oh man, I want to know about that. Like, one of the things just popped into my head is, it's on my bucket list. It's big on my bucket list. The crocodile people of New Guinea. The whole that they cover themselves in the white clay, and then they get in the river, and it's a rebirth for the young males, a rite of passage, and they have scarification. They come out looking like the skin of a crocodile, and it's like, what? That's the coolest thing ever, And there's so many cultures like that. There's so many stories like that, and that connection to the wildlife and to the land is, for me, like, it's everything. It
Something
is.
we've lost.
Yeah.
Way too much urbanization. A lot of people have lost that connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Well, we did a lot more than just talk about crocodiles. We went in a lot of directions.
I know, right? That's my
But
ADHD.
I loved it. I loved it. I mean, it was really kind of cool. So I want to say thank you so much for taking the time joining me. Don't go anywhere just yet. I'm gonna just stop recording. But if you can stick around for just maybe 2 more minutes
Yeah, sure thing.
before you hang up. All right. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.